Hi Aquarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video about the Jupiter transit in the sign of Aries, which is occurring during certain periods of 2022 and then into 2023. It's Raina here. And so this is going to affect your third house. And the third house is the house of communication. It's the house of teaching, the house of learning, of siblings, of other extended family members, neighbors, local area. And Jupiter has the power to make these, what do you want to call them, situations, people, places, and things more positive, more give you expanded opportunities with these entities and greatly enhance your life in this house of the mind, because this is Gemini's domain, and this is a friendly angle to Aquarius. This house that you have with Aries, this is where your third house is, and so it is very it's a lot easier to manifest things when you have a cooperative angle like a sextile. It's important to note that this is a general reading because your degree of sun or rising is pertinent in terms of how it's going to affect or when it's going to affect you, but it can at least give you some idea. So you may have more opportunities to train to learn a new skill. This is one of the things that the third house represents. But it's not just about learning something because it's pragmatic and you're just going to, be able to put it on your resume and all that. You're actually going to derive a lot of pleasure from doing so. There's enthusiasm associated with Jupiter that kind of imbues the area that it is transiting through. And I want to give a shout out to cafeastrology.com because they are providing the source of my information. Of course, I'm, kind of adding my own 2 cents to it, but I feel like it's important to do that. So, the other thing that Jupiter, because Jupiter rules the ninth house, it's associated with those things, and that rules the sign of Sagittarius. So one of the things that Jupiter is all about is about long-distance travel. And actually, the ninth house is opposite the third house, which is the house where this is transiting for you. So these kinds of, Gemini and Sagittarius are complementary signs, and they have certain things in common, but it's kind of like I look at the third house as a ground level where things are happening, on the local scene versus the long distance scene. And the third house can be transportation. So you may get a good deal on a car or other mode of transportation, or if you don't drive, maybe you'll get some kind of unlimited pass or a free pass if you qualify for something like that. It just allows you to kind of get around more easily. And even for something that does involve long distance, perhaps you get an opportunity to train for something, but it's in some other country. And this could be a practical skill in particular that this happens, because I would look at, what do they call that when you're studying abroad at a university? That to me is more like the ninth house. To me, this would be something that is a more mundane skill rather than an intellectual, abstract knowledge type of studying. But even like yoga teacher training, I could see something along those lines because it has that part of itself, even though it is with a religious subject, it's also how to, very practical with the body. If you're a writer, this is a great time because you may be more prolific. You may have some amazing ideas for projects, and who knows that you could come up with an idea and that book could be a bestseller. Or if you want to do something like a blog, a different type of writing, that could also be the case. And these people that I had mentioned can be lucky for you. So siblings or neighbors. Maybe you move to a place and your neighbors are very supportive, or you have they kind of expand your life in some way. Because the third house is connected with business, you may have expanded business sales. One of the things that I didn't see mentioned here that I really feel is an important point is about the mind itself. Now, they do mention education and communication. So I don't know how much I was talking about communication in the form of writing, but yeah, even speaking, I suppose, if you're doing public speaking or something like that. And maybe your voice has a larger audience, or your writing has a larger audience. But I think just the mind itself. Oh, and they mentioned, maybe doing learning things for the love of learning, not just for expanding your skill set. I suppose that as well can you can derive a lot of joy from that. But I would say too that the mind becomes even more positive, that you're thinking in a more expansive way. And I also feel, since the Jupiter connection to the ninth house, that this can involve spiritual matters and that this is how you get there. So even as it pertains to something like meditation, which in a sense doesn't necessarily seem tied to Jupiter, which is always like wanting more and acquiring more. There's that growth factor, and meditation is about stillness, but the wisdom that Jupiter is connected to, and also the positivity. So positive thinking. This may be a good time to read a book by Norman Vincent Peale. I've got to check him out. Or, of course, the classic that that started off The Secret, I'm sure, and all that. Well, certainly Abraham Hicks, Jerry Hicks. I think he read Think and Grow Rich. So that's almost like a perfect way to encapsulate this period of time, because even Jupiter can be connected to financial gain. And again, that comes from the positive vibes, the expansion, the ability to imagine more than what you have in this moment. Cafe Astrology also mentions a couple of trines that can be good for this transit. And they mention the 7th and or the 11th houses as it pertains to people that you are dealing with. The 11th house is the house of friendship. So that trine, it can't just be the planet resides in that house. It has to be within a certain degree span. And there would, you could, astro.com has the aspects table, so you can see if two planets trine one another. So they mentioned, the 7th. So the 1st to the 7th would be partnerships, and the 1st to the 11th would be friendships. And I'm sorry, I mean the 3rd to the 7th or 11th. uh, but there's something else that I wanted to say. Now I can't remember what it was that I was just thinking about myself. One thing that's really important. I mentioned writing, but teaching is something too. And if you are somebody who has already laid that groundwork in terms of teaching, I mean, studying, teaching, maybe you have a little bit of experience under your belt, but you've been having difficulty finding the right school district or what have you, this may make things a lot easier because sometimes even if you get hired, it doesn't mean that you're going to like the environment or, the way that things are run or the people that you're surrounded by. And this may make that a lot nicer for you. Positive. Okay, well, I hope that this resonated. If this seems like something that would be happening for you, I want to talk about the timing. So Jupiter goes into Aries on May 10th, and it only goes up to 8 degrees of Aries. And then on July 28th, Jupiter goes retrograde, and it starts losing degrees, and it goes back into Pisces on October 28th. I've been seeing a lot of 28ths, which is kind of interesting. And then it retrogrades back to the 28-degree mark of Pisces and goes direct on the 23rd of November, which just so happens to be the new moon in Sagittarius. So very, very interesting. That happens to be your 11th house, by the way. And then on December 20th, it goes back into Aries. So at the very, end of 2022, we see Jupiter finally going back into Aries. So back into that 3rd house. So, that's nice. You get some action back in the 2nd house. As I record this, you have a Jupiter in your 2nd house, Aquarius, in Pisces. So when Jupiter goes retrograde later this year, back into that 2nd house, you might have some more opportunities for making money. So even a retrograding Jupiter can sometimes give you some positive results as well. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.